This video will examine the top 6 asset protection strategies, and you can follow these steps when creating your asset protection plan to help you understand your options. So no matter what's coming down the road toward your business, you keep your assets where they belong with you. To do that, it's best to start asset protection planning now. If you've never created an asset protection plan before, it can seem like there's a lot of options, so where can you start? So what is asset protection? Hi, I'm the business guy, the CEO of Asset Protection Planners and Lawyers Limited, the nation's largest asset protection firm. And most people need an asset protection plan, but what is it? Investopedia's asset protection definition is a component of financial planning intended to protect one's assets from creditor claims. As part of financial planning, the goal of asset protection is to protect one's assets against creditors. Individuals and businesses use asset protection plans to limit the access creditors have to certain valuable assets while still operating within the confines of debtor-creditor law. As a business owner, you can sleep better at night when you're lawsuit proof. And as proof that you like this video, please click the like button below. Many thanks. You can also click the subscribe button and notification bell so that when more videos come out like this, you'll be up to date right away. As a legal measure, an asset protection plan insulates assets while avoiding illegal practices such as concealment, contempt, fraudulent transfer, tax evasion, or bankruptcy fraud. Although anyone can create an asset protection plan, it is the preferable choice for those with significant assets to protect. Some common methods for asset protection include a domestic or offshore asset protection trust, domestic limited liability company, LLC, and offshore LLC. After all, who couldn't use a little vacation to visit your money offshore and take a tax deduction? Now, some assets are already exempt from creditors. Qualified retirement plans are protected from creditors under the United States federal bankruptcy and ERISA laws, and there are several states that do not protect IRAs or give very weak protection to IRAs, such as California. Many states do not protect Roth IRAs at all. Some states also allow exemptions for a specified amount of home equity as a primary residence and some personal property like clothing. Each state has laws to protect owners of corporations and limited liability companies from business liability. Rule number 1. Start planning before a claim occurs. The best asset protection strategy starts early. This means it's best to put your assets inside of the proper legal tools before you know a lawsuit's on the horizon. But once you know that a lawsuit or judgment is coming, it's time to act immediately. Why? Because each state has laws that protect judgment creditors against those who make asset transfers with the intent to hinder, delay, or defraud a creditor. The court will classify these late transfers as fraudulent transfers. Now don't worry, in this case we're typically talking about a civil matter and not a criminal one. What happens when somebody transfers assets out of their name after somebody has started a claim against them? The court will likely order them to reverse the transfers and turn over those assets to pay the creditors. And that's why offshore asset protection plans work so well. The offshore trusts and our offshore trustee law firm can step in to protect you. Our international law firm is outside of your local court's jurisdiction, so it doesn't matter if the courts order the assets returned, the trustee/law firm will not comply. And since it's them and not you failing to comply, you typically get off scot-free. No, not Scott Baio, scot-free. But he's had a legal challenge or two himself. Now, it's never too early to start protecting yourself from lawsuits. Starting your asset protection plan early helps ensure that you're protected when claims arise. And repositioning your non-exempt assets as assets that are out of the reach of a creditor's claims figuratively turns them into exempt assets that your creditor cannot readily take away from you. Rule number 2, create a multi-layered plan. And that's multi-layered plan, not cake. Now, being fully protected against creditors and lawsuits means having multiple lines of defense. It isn't just enough to have a trust or LLC alone. The best asset protection plans create a series of obstacles that any opponent has to clear. And of course, some plaintiffs will have the stamina and strength to try to clear these hurdles. So the effectiveness of the plan comes from using the right legal tools to make those hurdles practically insurmountable. Like one of our employees, who is an attorney, got pummeled in divorce court for 11 years until he joined us and we set up the proper asset protection plan. And then within months of joining our team and engaging our services for himself, the opposition threw up the sweet unconditional white flag of surrender, as he called it. Now, we've seen the combination of the offshore asset protection trust with an offshore LLC inside protect our clients' assets every time. Now, naturally, the bank account needs to be in a bank that's beyond the reach of your friendly neighborhood judge. We put real estate into land trusts for privacy of ownership. We make LLCs the beneficiaries of those land trusts for investment property. And then we record liens against the real estate payable to an offshore entity to strip out the equity. And then if needed, we get a third party to acquire those liens and deposit the proceeds into an inaccessible account within the offshore trust. So that when everything is set up properly, the lawsuits run into a brick wall of protection at the end of all the hurdles. And a proper asset protection plan can protect you no matter how deep the pockets of your opponent. Now, you'll never really know when a claim will arise, who it will come from, or what it will be about. And a plan that involves just staying one step ahead of creditors can ultimately fail. And that's why it's so important to create a bulletproof asset protection plan that can stop about any legal attack dead in its tracks. Dead in its tracks, huh? That reminds me of when I went hunting with my father as a kid. Yeah, kind of like that. Rule number 3, but make sure you understand it. Although your asset protection plan should have multiple layers, don't make it more complex than needed. If you can't explain it, at least on a basic level, how your asset protection plan works, it isn't a good plan. That's why we produce videos explaining how the entities work so you can understand them. A helicopter view understanding is fine. I mean, you don't have to understand the circuitry inside the television before you turn it on, but you do need to know how to turn it on. So know the basics, and for the nitty-gritty details, rely on the professionals. In fact, I've been doing this for 30 years, for example. Now, when a deposition or debtor's exam comes up, failure to be able to clearly explain what happened and why makes the court suspicious. That alone could give the courts grounds to start disregarding entities or setting aside transfers. And there's also a higher chance the judge will find a case for fraudulent conveyance if they can't understand your asset protection plan. Now, fraudulent conveyance, by the way, is primarily a civil matter, not a criminal one. So that's further reason for utilizing an offshore asset protection trust to put assets beyond the reach of the local courts. Because when you've done so, even if the judge does make such a ruling, the ruling will merely be unenforceable words on a page. Rule number 4, get insurance, but don't rely on it. One line of defense that some people rely on too much is insurance. The problem with insurance is that when it comes time to make a claim, many insurance companies tuck tail and run. They point to exceptions in the policy as to why they should not have to pay. Plus, no matter how much insurance you have, somebody can always sue you for more, much more. An insurance plan can be a hurdle for a creditor to jump over or a catch-all system for anything that the rest of your plan missed. So it's only a supplement to an asset protection plan, and you should not rely on it solely. The asset protection company called Protective describes several different insurance plans that can help keep your assets secure. Homeowners or business insurance isn't just about protecting the structure from floods and fires. The insurance provides protection against lawsuits brought forth by people who are hurt on your property. Auto insurance shouldn't just cover your car, but also have a good amount of liability coverage. Umbrella liability insurance covers anything the rest of your insurance policies don't cover, but keep in mind when you file a claim like I did once, the insurance company will do all they can to look for exceptions so they don't have to pay your claim. Life insurance protects against one of your greatest assets, your income. This insurance helps ensure that the loved ones you leave behind after death can pay everyday living expenses. So don't rely on insurance, but it can make for a nice supplement to an asset protection plan. Rule number 5, use business entities. Now, one of the biggest mistakes an entrepreneur can make is lumping personal assets and business assets together. Blurring these worlds can leave you wide open to claims and cost you everything. Now, here are some of the best asset protection examples. They involve creating separate business entities. Corporations, for example, provide great lawsuit protection for corporate shareholders. Except in cases of extreme fraud, somebody cannot readily take your personal assets from you if your business loses a lawsuit. For tax purposes, there are 2 main types of for-profit corporations, the S corporation and the C corporation. Each has different restrictions and taxes, but both share similar lawsuit protection. Limited liability companies provide great asset protection with fewer ownership restrictions than S corporations. There is flexibility for filing taxes as a sole proprietorship, partnership, C or S corporation. In some jurisdictions, LLCs have charging order protection, so even if a plaintiff latches onto your membership interest from a lawsuit, he cannot easily take your membership interest away from you. Plus, he cannot force distribution of cash from the LLC. He does, however, get taxed whether he receives that income from your LLC or not. That's right. Your judgment creditor may receive a tax bill, but no money. And this potential outcome can help you prevent a lawsuit or settle on favorable terms. What to avoid? The two types of business entities that you best avoid are sole proprietorships and general partnerships. Sole proprietorships have no limit on personal liability, so one mistake could cost you everything in the business and personally. General partnerships link all the partners together in a dispute, and if your partner creates a legal dispute, a lawyer could come after your assets as well. And finally, rule number 6, use an asset protection trust. Now, this is a big one. Can a trust protect assets from lawsuits? And the answer is yes, it can, as long as it's structured properly. I've seen it with thousands of our clients. Now, there are a few trusts that can give you great asset protection. One type is a domestic asset protection trust. Now, a domestic asset protection trust can work fine if you live in that state, but the results are awful if you study the case law for people who live outside of the asset protection trust states. And by far, most states don't have asset protection trust laws. The judge says, you're here, your assets are here, I'm going to apply the law here as well. Give me the money in the trust, and there's nothing a domestic trustee can rightfully do but hand over your money that was in the trust. And that's what I've seen happen over and over again with domestic trusts. So the strongest protection is the offshore asset protection trust. And these are irrevocable trusts that benefit the trust beneficiaries. And the primary goals of an asset protection trust, naturally, is protecting assets from creditors and retaining access to those assets. Now, laws vary by country, and a typical provision for this type of trust is that the grantor can be a discretionary beneficiary of that trust's income and principal. And at least one of the trustees must be located in that country, and some of the administration must take place there as well. Now, one can use this type of asset protection tool only for asset protection if one wishes. Additionally, one can use it as part of an estate plan. That is, it will direct trust assets to another beneficiary when you and or your spouse dies. And even if you live in the same state where the trust was formed, the domestic asset protection version won't protect against every creditor. Depending on the state, some creditors may have access to such things as divorcing spouses and a child entitled to child support. Some will not protect against claims arising from any injury, damage, or death that the grantor caused before the assets were transferred into the trust. Now, here's where it gets exciting to me because I've seen it work over and over again. The offshore trust is much stronger than its domestic counterpart. The strongest asset protection trusts are in the Cook Islands, the Nevis Trust, and the Belize Trust. The reason is because the offshore asset protection trust puts assets beyond the reach of your local courts. The local courts say turn over the money. In the Cook Islands, for example, our trustee law firm says, sorry, you don't have jurisdiction here. So the most powerful asset protection tool is the offshore trust situated in the Cook Islands in the South Pacific, the Caribbean island of Nevis, or the Central American English-speaking country of Belize. We set up trusts in all three of these regions. So fill out the consultation form on our website or utilize the phone number below. Get the asset protection you need. It's seldom too early to start creating an asset protection plan. Even if you've already started planning, there could be more you can add to protect yourself. Ensure your plan gives you the best protection. Feel free to call our attorneys and consultants. We'll do our best to answer your questions and to ensure your asset protection plan does what it takes to help you keep what's yours. Please click like, subscribe, and share this video with others. Thanks for watching. This is The Business Guy.